In this video, we're going to talk about what's really happening between your brain and the rooms you spend time in. I studied this stuff for months, and today I'm going to reveal the 7 forces of design that silently control how you feel, break down how they show up in everything from ancient temples to Aesop stores, and then show you how to use every single one of them in your own home. Because most people design for how a room looks, but this video is about how design makes you feel. So let's start with force number 1. Mystery. And this is the fastest way to make a room feel magnetic, because your brain actually likes a room more when the room hides part of itself. And I know that sounds backwards. You'd think you'd want to walk in and see this beautiful space all at once, right? That's actually wrong. Show someone everything immediately, and they just don't feel much. And I know that you've experienced this on your own. You walk into someone's apartment and you can see the whole place from the front door. The kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, you see it all. But it just feels flat. You can't quite say why, but there's nothing pulling you in. But if you hint that there's something more around the corner, something just out of view, now they have to walk in. And that pull, that feeling of wanting to see what's next, I think that's one of the most reliable things that makes someone prefer one space over another. Just think about a Japanese entryway. You walk in and a wooden screen blocks your view of the rest of the house. And so you're forced to move and turn and discover it in pieces. Or in Church of the Light, Taro Ando hides the famous glowing cross until you come in at this angle and boom, it hits you all at once. And unsurprisingly, the smartest retailers on earth are weaponizing this for money. Walk into Dover Street Market in London, the concept store from Comme des Garçons, and it's built like a deliberate maze. There's no clear path to the exit, and instead, you turn a corner and stumble into a tiny installation, or you climb this strange staircase and a whole new world opens up to you that you couldn't see from below. I went in there once and I genuinely couldn't find the exit, but I didn't care. And I'm pretty sure Rei Kawakubo designed it that way on purpose, so you can't just scan the room and leave, you have to wander. And honestly, I think more stores should be built like this. Most retail is so boring that you're in and out in 3 minutes. But this style works because it's not manipulation. It's just how the brain is wired. We're built to love uncovering a space way more than being handed it all at once. Force number 2. The height of your ceiling doesn't just change how a room feels, it also changes how you think. And researchers have tested this. High ceiling, and your thinking opens up, you're more creative, and you're more big picture. But low ceiling, and it narrows, you're more focused, and more detailed, which means the space above your head is quietly setting the width of your thoughts. And this is called the cathedral effect, and I'm certain you felt this yourself. You walk into some massive lobby or an old church, and your voice just drops to a whisper without anyone telling you to do it. That's the ceiling doing it. And I could give you 100 examples of this, but I'll just focus on a few. St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, or really any massive cathedral, they run up into the shadows until your whole sense of self just expands and you feel genuinely small, but in a good way. Same for the Grand Hotel in Mexico City under all that Tiffany glass. The Ned in London, which is an old bank hall with these columns that run up forever. The Burj Al Arab atrium in Dubai that just goes up and up through all that gold. The Turbine Hall at the Tate, which is so huge that people literally lie on the floor in order to take it in. Or the New York Public Library reading room with its ceiling floating 50 or 60 feet over the desks. And even brands like Aesop are doing this, placing their retail stores in these massive gallery-like spaces, which suddenly makes buying hand soap feel like a ritual. But maybe the clearest proof of this is a building that does this to stressed out commuters every single day. Antwerp Central Station in Belgium. This is a train station, so it's a place that should feel like rushing and crowds and deadlines. But instead, the locals named it the Spoorweg Cathedral, the Railway Cathedral. When they built this back in, I think, 1905, the architect went way up with a vaulted stone hall and the dome that was apparently modeled on the Pantheon in Rome. And the effect is exactly what you'd expect. You hurry in late and frazzled to catch your train, but your eyes inevitably get yanked upward into all that light and open air, and your whole body just downshifts and forgets that you're late. Now, they could have built a low-efficient shed. It would have moved just as many trains for a fraction of the cost. But instead, they spend everything on height because they understood that if you make the ceiling tall enough, even a train station starts to feel sacred. And today, more than a century later, people still travel to Antwerp just to witness it. But with all this praise about high ceilings, this doesn't mean that low ceilings are a flaw. They're actually a tool in their own right, because a low ceiling wraps around you and tells your brain to settle in and focus. It's a candlelit wine cellar under a low brick vault. It's Kitty Fisher's in London with dark walls, velvet, and flickering candles. It's Cafe Florian in Venice, which has been there for like 300 years and still feels like a secret. The lowness is the romance, and I think this is massively underrated. Everyone wants the open plan and the soaring ceiling, and I'll be honest, all my friends know that I love a nice high ceiling myself. But at the same time, some of the best rooms I've ever been in had ceilings that I could almost touch. And the masters, they play both at once. Frank Lloyd Wright at Unity Temple funnels you through a low, dim, cramped entry and then releases you into a soaring top-lit room so the big space hits twice as hard. Compress, then release. Okay, now force number 3. You might have heard that sharp corners trigger fear in your brain, as if your nervous system sees a pointy table as a predator. But that's not quite right. Your brain doesn't punish you for the straight line. It rewards you for the curve. Because rounded shapes light up the pleasure centers in the brain. So curves aren't the absence of a threat to the brain. They're actually tiny rewards. And you really only have to look at nature to understand why. Hills, rivers, flower petals, almost nothing in nature is a hard 90-degree corner. The right angle really is a human invention. And so curves feel natural to our deep brain, while a room full of sharp edges feels incredibly unnatural. Oscar Niemeyer poured Brasilia into these sweeping white curves that look less like buildings than like something that grew there. Frank Gehry crumpled the Guggenheim into rolling titanium waves that ripple like fabric in the wind. And Zaha Hadid's nickname was the Queen of the Curve, and she showed why with the Heydar Aliyev Center in Baku, which seems to have no hard corners at all. So where would you least expect to find this done well? How about an airport? And yet, Eero Saarinen's TWA Flight Center at JFK is one of the purest examples there is. Saarinen banned the straight line almost entirely, and not just to look cool. From outside, it's a great concrete bird frozen mid-takeoff, but the inside is arguably even better. The ceilings swoop, the staircases pour down like liquid, and the corridors to the gates are these rounded tubes you kind of move through like a current. And think about what an airport actually is. A place built on stress. But Saarinen's bet was that a building with no sharp edges, where everything flows, would quietly calm all that stress down and keep the body relaxed instead of tense. And he was right. It worked so well that the terminal outlived the airline, and today it's a hotel and people still make pilgrimages to it 6 decades after it was built. I mean, nobody photographs a rectangular airport, but they flock to the one shaped like a wave because the nervous system feels the difference the second you walk in. But you don't need an entire building like that. Even a doorway that's arched feels better than a square one, and this could not be more true when it comes to furniture. The Togo, that wrinkly, boneless sofa with no straight lines, I think it sold something like 1.5 million units, maybe more. The Kameleonda, with its big, round modular cushions, it's also super popular, and a friend of mine has one, and I can tell you it's as fun and playful as it looks online. Vladimir Kagan's serpentine sofa curls across the room like a wave. Round pedestal tables, mushroom lamps, arched mirrors, all of them hand your brain that little hit of reward. So there's really no denying it. The brain just likes curves, and the mistake is skipping out on them entirely. A room full of hard rectangles and sharp corners, which is exactly why so many new builds feel cold and lifeless no matter how expensive they are. But this is seriously so easy to fix. An arched mirror and a round table. Those alone will work wonders. So, force number 4. Every room you've ever walked into sits somewhere on a hidden spectrum, and your brain wants you balanced right in the middle of it. On one end, there's too little going on. I'm talking about soulless rooms where nothing engages the brain, so the whole thing just feels dead. It's the builder grade apartment. Gray floor, white walls, black sofa, and nothing interesting. It's the generic Airbnb that could be in any city on Earth, which is kind of the whole problem with it. It's the corporate hotel room, beige, symmetrical, with a single bad canvas screwed to the wall. Your brain has nothing to grab onto, so every one of them feels like nobody actually lives or works there. But on the other end, there's too much going on. Clashing patterns, competing colors, and every surface screaming for your attention, so your brain can't find anywhere to land. It's the gift shop where every shelf is fighting every other shelf. There's too much with no order holding it together, and the room just makes you tired. But here's the trick to this. Boldness has to be paid for with calm. If you want something to stand out, like a saturated color, a wild pattern, or just some dramatic object, then everything around it has to go quiet so it has room to breathe. The calm buys the boldness, and it works at both extremes. The gallery at Sketch in London, I think they've changed it now, but it was famously drenched in pink from floor to ceiling, and it worked because it was only one color doing everything, with the drawings on the wall as the only contrast. And just down the street from there, Annabelle's piles on clashing florals and animal prints, but the dark, moody palette ties the whole riot together. Because maximalism done well isn't chaos. It's 100 loud things organized by one quiet idea. But now I want to show you the building that should break every rule in this video, but somehow doesn't. And sticking with our London theme here, I'm talking about the Barbican. Raw gray concrete, hard angles, and no warmth anywhere. On paper, it's a bunker, but in reality, it's one of the most loved places in the entire city, and force number 4 is the reason why. I mean, the architects kept everything relentlessly uniform, with the same rough, hammered concrete on every surface and total visual silence. But against that silence, they unleashed nature. A lake, fountains, these dense hanging gardens, and a glass conservatory with something like 2,000 plants. The green is almost violent against all that gray, and it only works because the concrete never tries to compete. Strip the plants out and it's a car park. Make the concrete busier and the plants vanish into the noise. But as it is now, the calm is the whole reason the place feels alive. And once you know how this works, you start seeing it everywhere. A deep emerald velvet sofa hits so hard because the wall behind it stays soft and plain. Wild wallpaper works in a powder room because the room's tiny and everything else is simple. The drama lands because everything around it paid for it. So here's your toolkit at this point. 4 things you can do this weekend to make your home look and feel better based on what we've learned so far. First is mystery, so you want to break the sight line. A screen or a tall plant just inside your front door, and a lamp left glowing in the next room. Second, height. Match it to the mood. Curtains hung up at the ceiling to lift a flat room, and a pendant light dropped low to settle a cavernous one. Third is curves. Put something round in a square room, like an arched mirror, an oval table, or a soft-edged chair. And fourth, balance. One bold thing per room and everything else calm. And by the way, if you want a 1-page summary of everything we're covering here today, that's at the link in the description, and I'll send you a couple really cool free design tools as well. Now, everything we've discussed so far, mystery, height, curves, and balance, that's all stuff you can see, and that's why most people stop there. But the senses that move you the deepest aren't your eyes, and ignoring them is the reason a room can look flawless, but still feel so wrong the second you walk in. And the first one we forget is touch. And the crazy thing is, we use our sense of touch even when we're not touching anything, because our hands have something like 17,000 touch sensors, and your brain is so wired to them that it reads a surface just by looking at it, because it predicts how something will feel before your skin ever gets there. And that's why we can tell just from a photo that a room full of rich, real materials feels alive, while a room full of fake materials feels dead. And if you don't believe me, just think about some of these contrasts. Raw oak with the grain and knots still showing versus a flat pack apartment where the wooden floor is a photograph of wood printed onto plastic. Hand troweled lime plaster versus whatever that builder's drywall is that's painted a dead matte gray. A slab of real marble full of natural veins versus a printed laminate countertop pretending to be stone. And I get it, real materials cost more. But the difference is so obvious to your body that it's worth saving up for one real thing rather than filling a room with 10 fake ones. But the worst version of this isn't even buying something fake. It's taking something real and making it fake. And I'll die on this hill. Painting over real wood is a crime. It seriously drives me crazy. Because when you seal solid wood under a coat of paint, you're not just changing the color. You're erasing all that grain, all that natural information that your body was reading and replacing it with nothing. You're taking the most alive thing in the room and making it mute. Your eyes are already touching everything in the room, so at least give them something real to touch. Now, force number 2 that so many people forget is light. And this is the one I'd fixed first in almost anyone's home because it has the highest impact for the lowest cost. And the mistake that I see everyone make is the big light. Having one fixture in the middle of the ceiling blasting straight down like it's a beam from a UFO. And honestly, your body hates it. Overhead light is daytime get to work light. And because it's pointed down, it throws ugly shadows under everyone's eyes. That's why it's the lighting they use in offices, hospitals, and the DMV. And when you put it in your home starts to feel like those places too. But on the other end of the spectrum, restaurants are an amazing place to learn about lighting because the best restaurants on earth spend millions of dollars doing the opposite. I was in this beautiful, really tiny restaurant in Korea a couple of weeks ago, and they just did this so well. So when you walk into any romantic restaurant, just look up. Whatever's on the ceiling will be dimmed down to barely a glow. And the light that you actually notice sits at table height or below. Candles, low sconces, maybe a little lamp on each table. Because that low, warm glow tells your nervous system that the day is ending, you're safe, and you can let your guard down. It's like a campfire. We've gathered around warm light low to the ground for, hundreds of thousands of years, and you think your body has forgotten about that? But there's even more biology to it than that. Our bodies run on a clock that's set by light, and the body expects bright, cool light in the morning to wake you up, and warm, dim light at night to wind you down. So blasting cold white light through your home at 9 p.m. isn't just ugly, it's telling your brain it's noon, which is exactly why that kind of room feels stressful at night, even if you can't explain why. So light your home like a campfire, not an operating room, which means the light should be low, warm, and from everywhere except straight overhead. And the last one we forget might be the most powerful at all, and that's smell. And here's why smell hits so hard. Every other sense gets rooted through the rational thinking part of your brain first, but smell doesn't. It's wired straight into the parts of the brain that run emotion and memory, so it skips the logic entirely and lands directly on feeling. That's why one whiff of a specific sunscreen drops you onto a beach that you visited as a kid. The smell is the memory. They're welded together and they don't come apart. So there are 2 ways to play this, and the best brands have figured out both. One is to pick a single scent and put it everywhere. And Westin hotels did exactly that. Back in around 2005 or 2006, they developed a scent called white tea and started pumping it through every Westin lobby on earth. So the instant you smell it, your body goes, I know this place. And it worked incredibly well. Guests asked the front desk about the scent so often that Westin turned it into its own product line that still crushes it on their website today, 2 decades later. But the other way is the opposite. which is to tailor the scent to the place. And that's the Amman way. Amman doesn't run one smell across all its resorts. Instead, it develops a unique fragrance for each one, which is designed to bottle that exact location. So Amman Puri in Thailand is bergamot, coconut, and tuberose, but in Venice, it's black pepper, rose, and amber. So the scent doesn't just say you're at an Amman. It says you're here in this specific paradise, and your brain welds the feeling to that place. And Westin and Amman are far from the only ones. One hotel's built their scent around sandalwood and jasmine, and apparently the most Googled hotel scent on Earth belongs to the Ritz-Carlton, because thousands of people check out, go home, and spend the next however many years trying to figure out what that smell was. And I'll be honest, I've Googled a hotel scent before too, though I never did figure out what it was. But that's how strong this lever is. They're not selling you a smell, they're installing a memory that drags you back. But those are engineered scents designed to make you remember a brand. But the version that goes even deeper isn't something you pump through a diffuser. It's the honest smell of real materials. Wood, coffee, a real fire, rain through an open window. Your nervous system doesn't just remember those, it trusts them. And it interprets them as natural and alive the exact same way it interprets real materials and real light. Now, everything up to now has been about making a space feel good to be in, but there's another more powerful feeling that sits above all that. The single most powerful thing a space can do to a human being. And it's the one we've almost completely stopped building for. Awe. You walk into a space so vast or so beautiful that you actually feel small, and it feels incredible. Your thoughts go quiet, and your sense of your own problems shrinks for a second. And we used to be masters at this. The pyramids, Sagrada Familia, Angkor Wat, these weren't built to be efficient. They were built to flatten you. But here's the thing. Awe isn't actually about size or stone or even God. And the proof is in a concrete plaza in California, Louis Kahn's Salk Institute. And there's almost nothing there. These two long blank buildings, a stone courtyard, and a single channel of water. But because Kahn aimed that channel directly at the Pacific horizon, the water seems to pour off the edge of the world. And that's it. No decoration, no expensive display of luxury, just an empty space and one line aimed at infinity. And that's the important thing here, that awe scales down as long as it has intention. And so you can find it in the simple things, like a single shaft of morning light you arranged your room to catch. And you felt this before without naming it. The first time you walked into a soaring old train hall or stood under redwood trees. It was always there. We just stopped designing for it. So let me bring this all the way back to where we started. We spend something like 90% of our lives inside buildings. And most people design those buildings, or at least decorate them, by asking one question. Does this look good? And that's not a bad question. Beautiful spaces do matter. But it's an incomplete question, because a room can look incredible and feel like nothing. And a room can look simple and feel like the best place you've ever been. The difference is everything in this video. The mystery, the height, the curve, the texture, the light, the smell. Hardly any of that shows up in a photo, but all of it shows up in your body the second you walk in. But most people never design for it because nobody told them it was there. There's a story I love about this gambling addict, Bill Friedman, who got hired by a bunch of casinos in Las Vegas to figure out what keeps people gambling as long as possible. And so he spent decades studying what worked, and he learned that the most profitable casinos all did the same few things. Low ceilings that press down on you, no windows or clocks so you lose track of time, and maze-like paths so you can never find the exit. And he wrote all this down in this massive manual, and the casinos that followed it became some of the most profitable real estate per square foot in all of Las Vegas. Not because of their games, but because of their rooms. Because Friedman understood something that most people never figure out, that no room is neutral. Every room, at every moment, is doing something to the person inside it. Friedman and the casinos chose to point that power in one direction to keep people spending money, but everything in this video proves it runs in reverse too. Height where you want to dream, a hidden corner that sparks your imagination, and God forbid, some curves. It's the same power, just used in the opposite direction. So stop walking into your rooms asking, does this look good? That's only half the picture. Because our rooms quietly control who we are and who we become. So the real question is, what are yours doing to you?